morning, viewers. We are already at the workshop seminar that we are invited for. We just want you to join us. Now we talk about digital farming system. Follow us online or through the program. And don't forget, Make We Go Farm program comes off live by 2:05 to 3 p.m. West African time. Thank you.
Tying together everything that we have said so far. So in terms of inclusion and digital farmer services struggling to make inroads with female farmers, this is where our investors and donors can come in and play a role. Because once it is part of the deal that you have to have gender integrated strategies in your initiatives, it then becomes actionable and trackable. What we found out also is that a lot of DFS, digital farmer service providers, it's not enough to just have advisory. They are now, or we are now incorporating service bundling, marketplaces, essentially, to maximize our customer potential. And then another consideration here is that because digital farmer services require know-how, a lot of providers find that they spend a lot of time and resources on capacity building, getting people to understand the solution, know how to use the solution. So an opportunity here is that we don't just stop at the digital solution itself. There is room to incorporate other smart technology into this. So looking at sensors, drones, and irrigation systems. If you're building capacity for a platform, might as well build capacity for something larger to come, so that once that solution comes on board, that smart solution comes on board, farmers are already aware. So you don't have to do another round of capacity building. We are seeing an increase in the use of artificial intelligence when it comes to sort of vision computing to disseminate messages. There are apps where you can take a picture and then it gives you a diagnosis of what's happening with your plant, for example. And also the use of free mobile apps such as WhatsApp, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. There are a lot of Twitter farmers now, and they're disseminating quite the information when it comes to that. So it basically segments the market. We are not only targeting smallholder farmers, we are also targeting urban farmers that have access to social media platforms. And then very quickly, I will hand over to Shruti, who is online. So again, this is normal. Hi, Shruti, are you online?
Yes, can you hear me?
Fantastic. Yes, I can.
I think just kind of building on what Aisha was saying, I thought I would illustrate an example in terms of another emerging market that's actually made significant progress and inroads when it comes to digital farmer services. And it's not surprising, I'll probably talk about the India Stack, which is essentially a digital platform that's kind of transformed India's digital public infrastructure totally. It started out as just a biometric authentication system, I believe in 2009, Aadhaar, which you guys might have heard of, and then eventually evolved to become a series of open APIs, which are interfaces. And the idea behind it is to enable as many kind of secure and paperless transactions as possible, which then means that it makes it easier for people to access various services online. And in addition to doing that, so India Stack basically consists of Aadhaar, which is the authentication or biometric identity system, which as of 2021 actually covers over 99% of all of India's adult population, which is something like 1.1 billion people or so. And then on top of that, there's also a few other buckets. Basically, there's a eKYC system for customer verification. There's electronic signing of documents. There is an electronic locker. As well as the most important part, which is the universal payments interface. And so by providing almost a standardized and an interoperable framework, India has really kind of revolutionized in terms of like how citizens interact with both the government as well as the businesses. And so I think anything that you can think of, whether it's like starting a bank account or, as somebody that doesn't live in India anymore, if I really want to download a copy of my birth certificate for something or get a copy of a land deed for something else, All of that information is available online and it is linked to my biometric identity system. Which of course I think, Aisha will in the next page or so start talking a little bit more about the interconnection between different partners, and like when you start talking about digital services and data, there's always a question of like, who owns the data? Like how do you get access to that data, and so on and so forth. But I think by taking on the brunt of a lot of that onto the central government, but still making it accessible to the state governments as well as businesses with the right levels of protection and data governance around the system, I think India Stack has kind of truly revolutionized how different service providers are able to access and build on some level of basic digital infrastructure without necessarily creating a monopoly. It reduces friction, but then it still makes it easier to disrupt in an inclusive way. So I think it's a little bit of a conundrum. And my husband's Nigerian. We often compare India and Nigeria in terms of like lessons that we can learn from each other. But I do think that India Stack paints a really good example of some trends that I think Nigeria is well on the cusp of kind of embarking on this adventure. And so hopefully that's a helpful overview. Aisha, let me pass it back to you.
Thank you very much. So that is, as Shruti mentioned, it raises and poses certain questions. If my slide can come up, thank you. So first questions before we move into our breakout groups that we would like for you to consider is one, we've alluded to it, that there must be alignment between our digital agriculture strategy and the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. Are there steps already in place? If they are not, how are we going to push for this alignment? Second is drawing off on the example of India Stack that has about 99% of the population, and if that is a huge population that is online, it's digitized. So for us in Nigeria now, farmer profiles must be treated as a digital public infrastructure, meaning that it needs to be available and it needs to be usable for stakeholders. So there is, like we said, different layers of digital identity. So if we are to harmonize, who is going to own that data, as we've heard, who is going to collect that data? What are the procedures in place for protection, data protection? Nigeria does have data protection mechanisms, but does that apply across board? And then with all the digital farmer services, the innovative digital farmer services we have in Nigeria, is there a registering body where the same thing as, say, taxi services, Uber, Bolt, and the rest, you have to get registered, you have to pass through a quality assurance system, then you are live? Do we have that? Do we have a vetting system to say that all these advisory services or information that farmers are getting is correct? And then finally, because again, like I mentioned, we cannot do everything. Nigeria has always had priority value chains where every other intervention or partnership is funneled through. What are our priority value chains now? And how are they going to play in terms of what we're about to do, prioritizing those use cases? If I may ask, do we have priority value chains announced? Yes.
Yes.
For the new administration?
Yes.
What are they?
For example, wheat, value chain, rice, cassava.
There is so good. Maize. And maize. We have about 5 to 6 prioritized value chains.
Okay, you have identified the prioritized value chain in acid.
In acid?
Yes.
Okay.
Because that's the agri policy.
Exactly. And acid is long term. Okay. So for this particular analysis, it is for Nigeria, but we focused on 3 states, 3 primary states: Ogun State, Gombe State, and Kano State. But then, of course, by the nature of FCT as the capital and Lagos State as our commercial capital, we had to do a lot of work in those 2 states as well. These slides you already have, so we're going to use them for our breakout sessions. We wouldn't go through them right now. So what this is essentially the reason why we are here. We flip through, and you have this in front of you. Apologies, it is a lot of paper. We just realized that our projection is having issues, so we quickly make sure that you have this printed out.
Sorry, what happens to those of us online?
Are you able to see this screen that says potential use cases?
Yes, I can.
Exactly. So that's this.
Yes, I can.
That's this, and
That's fine.
Thank you. So the desk research and stakeholder consultations all pulled through into these 6 categories of use cases for digital pharma services. And we have categorized them under how each one appears. Okay, so my mistake, I think that page may have been missing, but essentially what I need you to focus on is that there are use cases for advisory and extension services. There's another bucket for smart farming services, another for financial services, next for supply chain, another for pricing and market services, and then the final category is ag intelligence. So please let's move on so that we can be together in this with the first use case. So potential use case, and as we're going through this, make a note in your notebook at please make a note if there are any additional use cases that you have in mind, because as we're discussing, we would like to hear all of that from you. This is a co-creative process. This was essentially as a result of the conversations we had with most of the people in this room. So first use case is on animal identification and management system. So what this solution digital tool would do is to track the health, the habits, the location, feeding patterns of animals and detect diseases. So that's one. Second is on farm record keeping. Tracks the production costs, it supports evidence-based decision making, and it essentially digitizes transactions for the farmer. So any transaction between the farmer and every other stakeholder along the value chain is digitized. So this allows the farmer to track expenses, revenue, and then also prove their credit worthiness. Because if you have a digital footprint, it makes it easier. The third use case is on farm equipment. So an ecosystem or a marketplace that is essentially an Amazon for equipment. Standardized services that would enable farmers to be able to get access to mechanized assets, tractors, drones, land preparation, and crop monitoring activities. So for this digital tool, it allows farmers to be able to... Sorry?
Yes, happy to hear your voice. This voice is very scarce. Hear it once in a while, we are happy.
Okay. I'm not sure if that's for me, but if it is, thank you.
My husband, I'll be glad to have you and to see you.
Maybe a separate conversation, so please, team, do help us mute. We're moving on to number 4, which is a farmer-to-farmer, like a peer learning platform that encourages farmers to interact with each other and between themselves. And this is essential for technology sharing and upskilling when it comes to digital skills. Price information platforms, price is very, very important. Knowing when to sell and where to sell. So this solution will provide farmers with regular crop and livestock market price information from geolocated markets nearby. There's no use for a farmer to have access to information to somewhere that is on the other side of the world. Next slide is number 6 solution, farmer and farm identification and profiling. So this is basically the digital farmer registry of farmers in Nigeria. What are they farming? What is their location? What is their input? And I have to say this would have to be built on existing identification structures. 7 is on predictive early warning systems. So So early warning systems for pests and diseases, but also for weather fluctuations, to be able to guide farmers on when to plant and basically adjust their planting and harvesting calendars. Solution 8 is targeting credit systems, soft loans, access to loans, and also insurance for both crop and livestock. Number 9 is a soil mapping tool, a digital tool for land managers, for agronomists, and other stakeholders to better understand and optimize soil health. Final slide is on number 10, storage and aggregation services. So geolocating storage and cold hubs, and then providing pay-as-you-go services for farmers and for providers or processors so that they can access these services. 11 is on smart solar irrigation services. I think that's pretty forward. Number 12 is a tracking tool, seed and fertilizer tracker. Well, not only seed and fertilizer, but also other agrochemicals. So it's a platform that allows farmers to aggregate their demand, buy bulk purchase, and then also track prices and also authenticate inputs. And then finally, we have the digital agri wallet, which is basically a wallet for farmers to, not only farmers, but everyone in the ecosystem to transact. That's a lot. And this is why we need to prioritize. There has to be solutions here that you're thinking, and you're thinking, no, this can't happen because of A, B, C, or absolutely, this can happen because there are already systems and structures and precursors in place to be able to allow this to happen. Okay, so I would like to check that the team online are seeing slide number 30. You also have.
I'm not seeing any slide.
Okay. So give it a minute, and slide 30 on instructions should come up. Okay. So essentially what this slide is, one is that we're going to now move into the breakout session, which we're going to be split into 3 different groups. Group Kano, Group Gombe, Group Ogun, 4 different groups, and Group Virtual. So that's 4 groups. Once we're in your groups, we'll show you who is in which group. Once we have that, you assign a note taker and then a presenter, because we would like to hear back the results of the discussion. And then the main assignment in each group is that you go through the use cases that we have, and then you prioritize. You are to pick 4 use cases, your top 4 use cases. And then we are picking them based on 2 different criteria. And then we would be plotting them. And again, apologies if this was supposed to be in your printout, but I'll make sure you have it in a few minutes. So we're prioritizing across 2 different grids. The first one is implementation efficiency. So this solution that you are looking at or that you are prioritizing, how does it fare when you look at the cost of getting it off the ground in Nigeria, in terms of the money it takes, the time it takes, and the human resource capacities and capabilities? So that's one grid, from low to high. The second grid at the bottom, the horizontal one, is on adoption effectiveness. How easy would it be to use? How easy would it be for farmers to adopt this? What is the reach and the scale, potential to scale? So those are really the 2 grids we are going to. So what we'll do is, once we move into our groups, everyone, we're not voting as a group. We're discussing as a group, but then everyone votes individually. You have 4 cards. You write your priority value chain from what we have, or if you have a new one, and then we're going to have this grid up on the wall, and then you go and stick it where it fits on the grid. Should I explain that one more time?
Yes.
Yes. So, number one is we have 4 different groups. So we've already categorized it, and we would let you know which group you fall under. 2, note taker and a presenter for each group, because we would love to come back for plenary and then hear what your discussions are. 3, everyone gets 4 cards. You discuss with your team, because it's good to bounce off ideas, but you have your own 4 cards. And what you're doing with your 4 cards is looking through the use cases that we have, these 13, and you pick your top 4. And the criteria we're using to pick top 4, basically 2 things. One is implementation efficiency. How easy is it for this solution to fly in Nigeria? The second is how easy is it to be adopted by farmers? So it may be possible that there's a solution that costs a lot and it takes a lot of A, B, and C to get done, but it's easily adopted by farmers, or inverse. So depending on how you categorize your 4 top solutions, you plot them for us on this graph. We would have this paper up. It's supposed to be up by now on the walls. So this graph would be up in the room. The virtual team have their graph online. So for the virtual team, we would be using this. We would be using a board to be able to get this done. And then we plot. That's not clear, is it? It is clear. It's complicated, but it's clear. Okay, I have a hand online.
Yes, thank you. I just want to be sure that I understand the instructions. So, looking at the quadrants that you have, the yellow section talks about innovations or solutions that have high, the presentation is not displaying again, so I'm struggling, but I see that all 4 will be in the yellow quadrants. That is how I understand, because there should be high efficiency in terms of cost, time, and money. And then when it comes to the how easy it is to adopt these technologies, so it should be very, very easy. So we are coming out with the results of showing 4 solutions in the yellow quadrant. Is that clear? That is how I understand it. I just want to be sure that we are on the same page.
Okay, so partly correct. We don't want all your solutions to be in the top 4 quadrants. If all of them are in the top quadrant, yellow quadrant, then that's absolutely fine. But what we're saying is you may have a wonderful use case that is either on this paper or an additional one. And it's wonderful because it has high adoption, but it costs a lot, and it's going to take a lot of time. So in that case, it will not be in the yellow quadrant. Once again, sorry, I'm trying to pull up the documents for the online team so that everyone can take a look, but again, computer is defeating me. So Olumide, if you're sharing this, just open it up really wide so that it's huge. Just make it bigger. So I think what we would do, yes, so Mr. George, can you see what's on the screen?
Exactly, I can see it.
Right. If we can make it bigger, that would be great. For the team in-house, I sincerely apologize. We would have your grids on the wall so that this becomes very clear. So what's happening here on this grid is if we have a solution that is very high in terms of potential for adoption, that's the horizontal scale, but it is also very high in terms of implementation efficiency. It will cost a lot. It will take too long. That puts it out of the yellow box and pushes it into the green one. Is that correct?
Okay. Yeah, that's understandable. Because you said we are selecting the top four, that's why I got the understanding that perhaps you would want us to restrict solutions that are very efficient and equally very effective. But now I understand that we are grading all solutions, not necessarily only for coming up with only four solutions, but all solutions. So it will be a scattered diagram, some in the yellow, some in the green, some in the orange. So it's clear now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so for the virtual team, I would hand you over to Shruti, who would help facilitate your session. For the in-house team, let us get into our groups. I had a laptop here that had the group categorization, so that we just move into our table. Yes, sir.
Before, there was that categorization we did around these use cases initially, which said it didn't appear, this now the first page before we went into. Now, are we taking cognizance of that categorization in our pick of these four use cases?
I'm not clear. Can you say that again?
There is that slide.
The answer is no. So I think I understand the question. You've already categorized the use cases into about 5 or
Different
6
boxes.
different headings. He's saying that we need to take cognizance of those categorizations, those big bucket categories in the prioritization. So you're actually prioritizing the use cases that were not the categorization.
Yeah.
The categorization was just to help understand under which category multiple use cases will fall. But in terms of your prioritization on this quadrant, you are picking each of these use cases because each of those are potential solutions on their own. Does I don't know? Does that
Thank you.
Okay, so I think just to sort of set the tone for the team in the room, maybe we can take a few inputs from the team online. So are there any inputs in terms of the categories? Does anyone have an idea how they would like to place their 4 chips online?
It's difficult because we don't have the slides. I don't know which is 1, which is 2. If you can help us with that, thank you.
Aisha, can you make sure that you share the slide deck with all the virtual participants? Because I don't think they have the pre-read. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do that right now. It will be in your deck on the chat box, and then we'll also share via email so that you have it. In that case, then let's break out into our groups here. Hear me?
Just a quick question.
Go ahead, please.
Sorry, Aisha, this is Wanjiku.
Hi, Wanjiku.
I also wanted to find out perhaps there may be online participants who fall under the Kano, Ogun, and Ogombe. Would that mean that they remain here or they also contribute to their groups? Assuming there are some who fall within those categories.
Thank you, Wanjiku. So for now, for ease of sort of deliberations, we'll put everyone virtual in the virtual group. For the states representation, we have everyone in the room, unless if I'm missing something and we have someone online that is from the states. No, okay. Yeah, so I think for now we'll just have everyone that way. Thanks, Wanjiku. So I will be sharing the deck with the team again now and dropping it on the chat box as well. Yemi, can you please call out the groups so that we know who is going where? we can have 1, 2, and 3.
Good morning once again. So for Gombe State, Gombe FMAD, Harvest Plus, Gora Healthcare Limited, Department of Agricultural, Land and Climate Change Service, Department of Animal Husbandry Service, NITSTA, DA, BIAMO, and SWOFON, SWOFON. And also for Kano State, we have Kano FMAD, IFA International, Strive Agri, UBEC Foods, One Farm Innovation Service, Dryland, Department of Agri-Farm Inputs, Sasakawa, and MTN. And for Ogun State, we have Agro Infotech Agri, Institute of Agricultural Research and Training, we have Flumuvina, we have Ogun FMAD, we have IFEX, Department of Agri Extension, Livestock 247, and that's all.
So who is moving where?
Well, I think that was maybe our cue to get started over here. I don't know if folks want to come on video for this session. It might be easier for all of us to see each other, but I also recognize there might be bandwidth issues. So happy if you want to stay off video as well. Just let me know, and we can get started. Please also let me know once you receive the.
Okay, so group Kano, if we can convene here. Kano, okay, you found your corner, thank you. Group Ogun. Group Ogun is here. And group Gombe here.
prioritizing more
What happened, bro?
I don't know why it's not So, Melissa, Shruti has added some files. It's not.
Okay, the letter is there with you. Okay.
Try to implement that.
What do you have interest in? So you're going.
Definitely don't take that. Yeah. Yeah, I get that too. You guys are trying to find out who is
It's a farmer. So it's not that. Yeah, so people do applications, warehousing and supply
Oh, it's all right. Okay. What is it? I want you to stop it. You see, I should speak to the person. Stop. Where are we stop? It's probably where